The silence of the night, streets shrouded in darkness, and the story of a girl who, with her courage and wit, tears through the shadows of injustice to bring the light of truth. This is the tale of Ayman Khan, a brave CBI officer who risked her life to not only save her honor, but also expose the beasts who use their power and uniform to destroy innocent lives. This is a story of bravery, courage, and the truth that carves its path through every hardship. Prepare yourself for a heart-pounding narrative that will make your heart race and prove that truth always triumphs with its head held high. Ayman Khan, a CBI officer, was returning home at 2:30 a.m. after an important meeting. Her car had broken down in the deserted alleys of the city, so she set out on foot. The moonlit night was in full glow, but the silence of the streets filled her heart with dread. Ayman walked briskly when suddenly, at a turn, she saw a police inspector and two constables standing in the middle of the road. Their eyes locked onto her the moment they saw her. The sight of a beautiful, young woman alone at this hour sparked a strange gleam on their faces. The inspector stepped into the road, blocking Ayman's path, and stared at her from head to toe, saying, "Are you coming from somewhere so late, madam?" Ayman replied calmly, "I'm coming from an important task, heading home." But a devilish smile spread across the inspector's face. He moved closer and said, "What important task at this hour? Spend some time with us too." A warning bell rang in Ayman's heart. She quickened her pace, but the inspector and constables followed behind. The darkness deepened, and Ayman's breaths grew rapid. Suddenly, the inspector grabbed her arm and pulled her, demanding, "Tell me, what was that important task?" Ayman stammered in fear. "It was a meeting." The inspector laughed loudly. "A meeting at 2:30 a.m.? Have a meeting with us too." Before Ayman could respond, he yanked her dupatta and tore it. Ayman realized her life was in danger. She stepped back slowly, but the inspector advanced. As he lunged to grab her, Ayman broke into a run. Ayman's breaths were heaving. She ran blindly to save her life. The inspector chased her, a wild gleam in his eyes. Suddenly, he shoved her, and she fell onto the road. Ayman lay panting, and the inspector loomed over her with strange eyes. He sat near her and said, "Where will you go now?" Ayman gathered her last bit of strength and pushed him back hard. She stood and ran again. The inspector shouted in rage, "Catch her!" A constable ran after her and grabbed her arm. Ayman screamed, "Let me go! You will face the consequences." But the inspector had lost his mind. He ordered a constable to bring alcohol and began pouring it over Ayman. She was soaked. He handed her a bottle and said, "Drink." Ayman said, trembling, "I don't drink." He threatened, "Drink, or we'll leave you in such a state that no one will hear your cries." Ayman, a trained CBI officer, took the bottle and pretended to drink. The inspector and constables stared at her, as if their prey was now in hand. Suddenly, Ayman placed her hands on her head and feigned unconsciousness, lying on the road. The inspector leaned close and said, "Now the fun begins." He touched her hair, but Ayman grabbed the bottle from the ground and smashed it on his head. Blood trickled as he staggered and fell, and Ayman ran again. The inspector yelled furiously, "Catch her!" Ayman had barely gone far when a constable grabbed her. The inspector dragged her toward the car and said, "Your punishment has increased now." He pushed her inside and slammed the door. Ayman was inside, and the inspector growled, "Where's your pride now?" Ayman spotted a heavy torch on the dashboard. As he tried to touch her, she grabbed the torch and struck his face. He shrieked and recoiled, and Ayman opened the door and ran again. She ran toward an old, abandoned factory with broken walls and rusted machines. The inspector chased her with an iron rod, his face full of fury. Eamon hid behind a machine, her breathing heavy. The inspector entered, shouting, "Where are you hiding? You can't escape today." Eamon held her breath, but a brick slipped from her foot. He heard the sound and rushed toward her, grabbing her waist. Eamon pushed him and fled the factory. Outside, she saw the two constables blocking the road. She turned to run the other way, but the inspector was there. Now she was surrounded. Eamon closed her eyes and sat on the road. The inspector roared, "Get up and lie in the car, or I'll finish you here." Eamon said shakily, "You think your uniform lets you do anything? But injustice never lasts." The inspector called for a rope and ordered a constable to tie her hands and feet. Eamon quickly said, "Fine, I'm ready." The inspector laughed and threw the rope away. Eamon walked toward the car, and he followed. At the car, she said, "You will face the consequences." He sneered, "We'll see your fate." Just then, a police jeep arrived. The inspector went to talk to them. Eamon approached him and said, "I'm hungry. Feed me first." He gave her a burger. She ate, thinking of her next move. She stood and said, "One condition. You must close your eyes." He laughed and agreed. Eamon led him to a corner and said, "Lie down here." He lay down and closed his eyes. Eamon stomped on his wrist where his revolver was. He opened his eyes in shock, but Eamon had taken the gun. He shouted, "This is a trick." Eamon smiled, handed it back, and said, "I wanted to show I could escape, but now I'm ready." He hugged her, and she asked, "Are you really powerful?" He boasted, "Yes." She led him back to the car and picked up a dupatta, asking, "Whose is this?" He smirked, "Some girl's." Eamon recorded his confessions. Suddenly, she revealed a hidden camera with his crimes recorded. He lunged for it, but she slapped him hard. 2 black jeeps arrived, and commandos arrested the inspector and constables. Eamon showed her CBI ID and said, "I'm a CBI officer. Your punishment is due." In court, Eamon presented the recordings and evidence. The inspector and constables received harsh sentences. Eamon's courage proved that truth and justice always prevail. This story teaches us that the pride of injustice and power is temporary. Eamon risked her life to expose these monsters and showed that courage and truth can overcome anything. Truth always wins, no matter how tough the path. Goodbye. See you in the next story.